Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Ciara Revin, and this is the Sunday 7.
On today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we investigate the latest Boeing drama, hear about more AI lawsuits from Will Guyatt, learn about a man who had a kidney transplant while he was awake, and get surprised by 180,000 Scottish bees. If you're enjoying the episode, please do like and share. And remember, we're here 7 days a week with the Smart 7, the 7 biggest stories every morning at 7 a.m. But before we start, it was on this day in 1953 that the first Chevrolet Corvette rolled off the General Motors production line in Flint, Michigan. Apart from being an iconic sports car, it was also the first laminated fiberglass body car in the US. There were 300 made in the 1953 model, which had white interior, red exterior, and a black canvas convertible roof. Back in 1953, that would have cost you $3,500, and today it'd be worth about $250,000. To say things haven't been going well for Boeing would be a colossal understatement. Things started to go bad back in January when they had a door blowout on their new Boeing 737 MAX 9 as the plane was taking off from Portland, Oregon. That incident, plus 2 previous crashes and software issues, raised serious questions about Boeing's new planes, but also about their internal procedures and safety checks. The investigation found that 4 door bolts appeared to be missing, and both the Federal Aviation Authority and the US's National Transportation Safety Board launched investigations and inspected over 170 Boeing planes. Whistleblowers have raised issues with quality control on Boeing production lines, and Boeing have been trying hard to fix the issues and improve the public perception of their brand. However, a press conference and event with journalists has now seen the company sanctioned by the NTSB for releasing information that was not supposed to be public as yet. This clip with Boeing Quality Management Senior Vice President Elizabeth Lund is what caused the latest issue.
That plug was opened without the correct paperwork.
The safety investigation is focused on the Boeing MAX production line in Seattle, and the NTSB, FAA and FBI are still working on it. As if it wasn't bad enough, Boeing's also having a PR nightmare with its new reusable space vehicle, the Starliner. It delivered 2 astronauts, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, to the International Space Station on the 5th of June. They were supposed to return to Earth 8 days later, but they're still in space. CNN's Aerospace analyst Miles O'Brien explains what's going on.
This is a star-crossed spacecraft. It had leaks before it launched. It was delayed for many years. Boeing has taken about $1.5 billion hit on it, and it's yet another black eye for this once proud aerospace giant.
The Starliner has had issues with its helium thrusters, so the delay is partly a safety issue and partly a chance to try and figure out the data while still in space before atmospheric re-entry. Miles says there's no risk to the astronauts and they're happy and safe on the space station.
Right now, there's plenty of margin for the helium that they need, and the thrusters seem to be working. They just want to figure out why they're having so many troubles with this spacecraft before they bring them back home.
Mike Massimino is a former NASA astronaut and author. He says that giving Butch and Sonny more time in space and on the space station is no bad thing, and that as astronauts you expect some hiccups along the way.
This is a test flight, and there are 2 test pilots on board, so they really want to test the vehicle and find out as much as they can before they have the next flight, which is going to be considered more of an operational flight. This flight was designed to learn as much as they can about the spacecraft. The interesting, they mentioned there, the orbital module, that does not return, so there's 2 pieces that are up at the space station, the crew module and the orbital module. The orbital module is going to be used to help them get home, and then it's not coming back to Earth. So the crew module, for example, they're going to get that back. They can study it and get some more data on it. But this is the last time they're really going to be able to get data on the orbital module. They want to make sure that it's performing as best they can.
6.
This week has, as always, seen a deluge of stories about AI and what it's going to do next. Later in the episode, we'll hear from Mr. Microsoft, Bill Gates, about what his view on artificial intelligence. But in the meantime, let's catch up with a man who has real old-fashioned organic intelligence, the Smart 7's tech guru, Will Guyatt. So, Will, we've said this year it's the year of the lawyer versus big tech. Who's been on the phone to the legal department this week?
We're only halfway through 2024 and the lawyers are certainly racking up the fees. In some corners, businesses like OpenAI are already hoovering up pretty much any content they can find on the internet to train their large language models. That's the tech behind their chatbots. But they're now paying license fees to companies who've challenged the legality of what they're doing. Of course, there are two sides to every story, and I'm sure OpenAI are saying it's absolutely fine for them to use stuff that's been published. It's no different to you or I reading something or watching something.
It seems like music is the latest battleground for the legal teams when it comes to AI.
The latest fight in the world of AI seems like we've gone back to the late 80s or early 90s when record labels were chasing each other for sampling in rap tunes. Now we've got AI music tools essentially basing what they make on the work of others. And something tells me these powerful major record labels will do their best to protect their investments.
And these two AI music startups, Suno and Udio, are in trouble, right?
Definitely, and firms like Sony, Universal and Warner Records are all claiming that Suno and Udio's level of copyright infringement is on an almost unimaginable scale. These lawsuits are flowing thick and fast as part of action announced by the Recording Industry Association of America, and it's challenging the rights of AI companies to use their work. As yet, Suno haven't commented on these claims, but last week Udio said in a blog post that it was completely uninterested in reproducing content.
When Ed Sheeran or Bruno Mars get sued, it can take years to resolve. Do we think the big record companies are going to move quickly here?
It looks like the record labels have moved quickly in the hope that they can settle and tie up some licensing deals, but this was likely to get mired in red tape. Last year, when their first AI music clones of note got released, like that track including an AI-generated Drake in The Weeknd, it actually took days for labels to legally work out if they even had a claim to remove it from streaming platforms, despite neither artist being involved in the song. Currently, the RIAA is attempting to claim a cool $150,000 a track, and when Suno tells you that over 10 million of us have used their AI tool in the first year, the legal payouts could potentially be adding up very quickly.
These startups have some big backers, right? Suno has Bill Gates as an investor. Do they have a case? What are they claiming they're doing with songs like Prancing Queen?
Definitely. Microsoft partners with Suno, and it recently announced a $125 million investment. Meanwhile, Udio is backed by some big Silicon Valley venture capital investors, and they've got good lawyers too. Both of these companies strongly reject these suggestions that their AI models allow you to copy or rip off other songs. But picture the scene. You prompt Suno to create you a 70s pop song, and it delivers Prancing Queen, which sounds very much like ABBA, and potentially takes the edge off their argument, and likely sees more lawyers joining a very long queue to sue them.
It wouldn't be a Sunday 7 without an Elon Musk story, and this time it's the Cybertruck that seems to be in trouble. What's he done now, Will?
Just imagine, you've waited 5 years for your Tesla Cybertruck, that angular stainless steel pickup that looks like it was designed on a PlayStation 1 back in the 90s. You pop round to show your neighbour and suddenly it accelerates towards their house, even when the driver had his foot on the brakes. In fact, to back up his claims, evidence shows that the rear wheels were locked on this vehicle for almost 50 metres and the damn thing still didn't stop. This happened in the US back in April, and while the owner informed Tesla and they told him they were looking into the braking issue and would get in touch, he claims they still haven't called him back. And now we're in July. Not the greatest of looks.
And there's a recall notice too. Will it just be taken off the market?
The Cybertrucks actually had 5 recalls in 4 months, and until now, Elon Musk has characteristically brushed them off, because these days, recalls can actually be fixed with over-the-air software up, just like on your smartphone. Well, they could until 2 bring your truck back to the dealer recalls came out on the same day. One of these related to the need to replace the windscreen wiper motor on the vehicle because of a high number of failures, and the other related to a big piece of plastic that fell off a number of Cybertrucks and was causing danger on US highways. These quality issues don't seem to be going away, and while we actually saw a pause in production where they sorted out this problem with the windscreen wiper motor, there's no way this vehicle is going to be cancelled. Tesla spent billions and Elon Musk has an ego.
And finally, it looks like the days of the PC gamer are numbered, or at least those who use the old school keyboard and mouse combi.
It does look that way, and it's hard to deny the evidence when it comes from Valve. They're the company that runs Steam, the biggest PC gaming store on the internet, and their data says a growing number of us want to play PC games on controllers, just like we've seen on our games consoles for decades. The keyboard and mouse have remained a favourite among gamers until this point, but there's a push for portability in the world of gaming PCs, with devices the size of Nintendo's Switch handheld now really popular, so it seems there's growing demand for controllers. And until now, most of us have been using a PlayStation or Xbox controller, but Valve have teamed up with Ori, a Japanese company, to create their first new controller since 2014. I'm going to miss those W, A, S and D keys on my keyboard.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, a world first kidney transplant and why multivitamins might not do you any good. Depending on how you feel about surgery, this story might either delight or appall you. Surgeons at Northwestern Medicine in Illinois have performed the first ever kidney transplant on a live patient. 28-year-old John Nicholas of Chicago got to watch as surgeons removed his old kidney and implanted a new one. Dr. Satish Nadig, who is the director of the Northwest Medicine's Comprehensive Transplant Centre, says the reason they're doing it is for the good of the patient.
The less that we can do to a patient, aside from what they really need, the better off they are. And I truly feel that less is more. And in this scenario, the patient gets a kidney transplant, but is using their own physiology and their own biology to breathe and talk and interact the entire time.
The patient did receive a spinal anaesthetic, so he didn't feel any pain, but he saw the whole operation unfold. Because he hadn't had a general anaesthetic and his system didn't need to shut down during surgery, he left the hospital just 24 hours after he had had the transplant. Dr. Nadig says the success of the trial could pay off in a number of ways.
I think what will happen now is that we open up this idea and this program, which we call the AWAKE program, accelerated surgery without general anesthesia and kidney transplantation, for a particular subset of patients that A, want the operation, B, can't have general anesthesia or have a high risk profile for general anesthesia, or C, fit into a category where this could benefit them in some way.
Nearly half of all adults in the UK take a multivitamin once a week or so, but it's never been totally clear what the long-term health benefits of that might be. Now, a new American study that looked at 400,000 healthy adults has cast fresh doubt over whether or not taking multivitamins has any positive impact at all. The research was carried out by Dr. Erica Lotfield and her colleagues at the National Cancer Center in Maryland, and they used data from 3 major US studies that had been running since the 1990s. The data showed that, in fact, there was a 4% higher mortality rate for those who took multivitamins regularly. Dr. Celine Gounder is a medical contributor for CBS News, and she says, don't throw out your Holland and Barrett collection just yet.
This study really looked at risk of death, not other potential benefits. But what we're seeing is whether it's death from cancer, from heart disease, from stroke, we're not seeing a benefit from taking multivitamins. In general, it's better to get your vitamins from whole foods, so fruits, vegetables, and the like.
There's still a case to be made for taking vitamins for those who have specific issues, such as pregnant women who need folic acid, and there's a recommendation for people in the UK to take vitamin D to cope with our miserable winters. Dr. Celine says there's also research which supports the use of vitamins to cope with issues as we age.
There is data, for example, that taking a multivitamin can reduce your cognitive decline as you get older, so your memory and so on. There's also evidence, for example, macular degeneration that you can head off with certain vitamins. So, it depends on what you're looking at. Are you looking at mortality, risk of death? Are you looking at certain other specific disease outcomes? And so, I think that's where, again, for certain populations, it may make sense to be taking vitamins.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, Bill Gates has some thoughts on AI, and we catch up with a lot of Scottish bees.
Right after this.
Temp check. What kind of summer are we having this year? A family road trip summer? A beach bum summer? Or a wake me up when the sun sets summer? With Instacart, choose your own adventure and skip the shopping side quests. Where available, you can get ice cream delivered to your hotel, sunscreen to the pool, or cold brew to your bed, door, in as fast as 30 minutes. Wherever you find yourself this summer, you can get the goods. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
Welcome back.
This week saw Channel 4's Dispatches programme experiment with deep-faked AI versions of Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer to see what influence it might have on voters. They also generated fake endorsements from Stephen Fry and Ramesh Ranganathan to see what impact it would have on a sample of voters in Southend. Fortunately, we haven't seen much in the way of fake content in this election cycle, but Sky News sat down with the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, to get his thoughts on AI and how much of a risk it might pose.
AI is so important that we have to make sure it's mostly being used by people with good intent. So anytime you have a new technology, it's mostly used by teachers and doctors and scientists to help them be more effective. If you have somebody who's engaged in something like a cyber attack or, political interference, AI could be used by them. And so you have to make sure the good guys are staying ahead in detecting and preventing that type of usage.
He also says that as AI-generated video becomes more common, we really need to become more sceptical about what we're seeing.
We know when something's printed on a piece of paper, anybody could have typed it in, but we still think of videos as somehow authentic because it used to be hard to fake. And so a little bit, people have to really ask, okay, where did this come from? There'll be laws creating penalties for fooling people, but the biggest thing is going to be advancing medical science, advancing education, and taking this climate issue and getting that innovation to move even faster.
Space exploration is really having a moment right now, with more nations involved and more ambition from organisations such as NASA, including moon landings and potentially flights to Mars. NASA has had great success with their Mars exploration, with the Mars rover gathering samples. But the big question is, how do the samples get back to Earth? It's a question the agency has really struggled with, and this week saw them open up the project to private operators after they faced a potential $11 billion cost to get rocks from Mars back to Earth. So they'll have watched with interest this week as China managed to successfully land samples from its moon probe back on Earth. Deputy Director General Ibrahim Qasim of the UAE Space Agency says recovering samples from the far side of the moon is an exciting development.
This is extremely interesting because so far all the samples that have been returned from the moon have been from the near side of the moon. So this is the first time we get some samples, some moon dust and rocks from the far side of the moon. And the moon is a very important, I think, piece in our deep space exploration of our solar system, in that it's not only a stepping stone to Mars, but it's potentially a resource-rich celestial body that we could exploit in the future.
We've all found stuff in the spare room we'd forgotten about, right? But imagine finding 180,000 bees in your spare room. That's what happened to a family in Inverness, Scotland. The homeowner's grandchildren had been complaining that they could hear buzzing sounds at night when they went to sleep. So an investigation began. Andrew Card of the Loch Ness Honey Company peeled back the ceiling of the spare room and found, well, quite a surprise.
Quite a big one, this one. A good colony this time of year should have about 50,000 bees in it. These ones were slightly larger than that. Between the three of them, we were looking at 180,000 bees. Quite a lot of bees.
The good news is the bees have been safely removed, and there might even be a sweet ending to the story.
We removed the bees by the bee vac, and then we've put them into temporary kind of hives. We then monitor them and feed them for about 6 weeks, and then we overwinter them, giving them the best chance of survival. And next year, then, that will be used for honey production, probably.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
Even when we're on a budget, we still deserve nice things. Quince is a place to scoop up stunning high-end goods for 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They have buttery soft cashmere sweaters starting at $50, luxurious Italian leather bags, and so much more. Plus, Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing. Get the high-end goods you'll love without the high price tag with Quince. Go to quince.com/style for free shipping and 365-day returns.